Rest in peace, Bill Jones. The beginning of the Matthias Jones mysteries. Copyright 2018 by the R.I.P. Fitton Revocable Trust, as read by the author. Rest in peace, Bill Jones. Chapter 1. Wabash Corners High School, Wabash Corners, Indiana. He idealized Dad as much as Dad idealized him. Both men had earned each other's respect. Matthias Jones, clipboard in hand, stared into Dad's intense chestnut eyes. Dad's hair, mostly gray now, indicated that retirement was not far away. He was a superb detective, but with his blunt style, he could never finesse a football team. The lines on his forehead had deepened, yet he retained the tenacity and street smarts of a veteran investigator. As the team went through the drills on the practice field, Jones brushed the dust off his emerald and white football jacket. He was one victory into the season, and Dad had an opinion on his running of the team. "How are you feeling, Dad? Flu all gone?"
"Nothing wrong with this guy."
"You always say that."
"Let's talk about you, Matthias."
"Me?"
"You're a great quarterback, probably the best ever at Wabash Corners."
"What about Ohio Central?" laughed Jones.
"Pretty good there, too."
Dad folded his arms.
"But you have to lead now, son. Lead, not get the signals from the coach. You are the coach."
"Yes, sir," said Jones as he grinned and saluted. His team in their green and white uniforms warmed up at the far end of the field.
"I'm serious, Matthias. I had this discussion with May last night, and your aunt knows football."
"Do I tell you how to be a good detective, Dad?" asked Jones, leaning toward Dad.
"Yes, you do."
"Well,
I've always welcomed your side-road theories. In fact, you would have made a good investigator because
you never give up," said Jones in unison with his dad. Dad was a widower when Jones was only 5 years old, and he wanted his son to become a cop, but Jones was an athlete. Jones chuckled. "Is that all, Dad?" He looked over at his rotund Aunt May in a Wabash Corners jacket, nodding her head in agreement with her brother.
"No, one more thing."
"And what's that?"
"Hit 'em, and hit 'em hard."
"Right, Dad. Where are you off to?"
"Tracking down corruption. I might have to go up north tomorrow for a few days and talk to a witness."
Jones shook his head and then hugged him. "Be careful, Dad."
"If I was careful, I wouldn't do what I do. Get out there and win."
"I'm going to the Nationals with this team." Dad's crooked teeth formed a smile that ascended over his gums. He put his hand on Jones's shoulder.
"Son, I know your determination. You might just do it."
"Chip off the old blockhead." Dad liked that one and tilted his head back as he laughed.
"Oh, yeah.
Talk to you later, Dad."
"Rock and roll."
Dad saluted and then walked over to the bleachers. He muttered a few things to Aunt May and then headed for his bright green pickup, parked near the bike racks at the end of the high school parking lot. Jones checked his analog watch and then panned the field, surrounded by a cinder block track. He had played sports here as a boy and high school football only 6 years ago. Dad had always been in the stands, usually with Aunt May. In the parking lot, Dad opened up the pickup door and got inside. Jones heard the engine start as he turned toward his team. He smiled when he thought about telling Dad about going to the Nationals, but then again, Dad always liked aiming high. Jones, his silver-haired Aunt May, and a table full of neighbors sat in the wood booths along the windows at Mulligan's Bar. The balding Jack Dunphy from WBSH raised his bushy brows and formulated his next question in his deep, resonating voice.
"I have a source that told me that your team is going to the Nationals."
Jones gave him a double take. "Jack, would I say something like that?"
"Apparently you did."
"This team is going to take it one game at a time." Aunt May gave him the thumbs-up sign.
"The Nationals are one big goal,"
said Jack. Jones smiled. "Yes, Jack, one big goal."
"Thank you, Coach Jones."
"My pleasure," he said as he leaned toward his dark-eyed aunt. "How'd I do?" "You smile too much, Matthias." "It was radio, Aunt May." "Well, people can tell." "Oh, hogwash," said Jones as Stefani, in her jeans and Wabash high school jacket, approached the booth. Her dark hair was freshly trimmed and her coal eyes looked like a half-open blind. Jones looked up as she kissed his cheek. What'd you think of the game, Stefani? Sweet, she said, producing her usual fixed smile. Hello, Auntie May. Sweet? Asked Jones under his breath. He stood and fought his way between the patrons at the far side of the bar. Stefani continued to pontificate back at the table, oblivious to the fact he was no longer at the table. Jones ordered a beer from Mike and leaned on the bar. He tried to figure out how he had let Stefani, a pushy social studies teacher, weasel her way into his life. She was all over him at the first faculty meeting in August. It was as if she had been following him and had planned to make him a part of her life. 2 weeks after they met, Jones was at her parents' dining room table eating a roast. Jones had been so wrapped up with his team being successful that he just let her take over. I should have known. You should have known what? Asked Mike, wiping the bar. Jones shook his head. What did Norman Abbott say about the 2 victories? Jones pursed his lips. You know, Mike, that guy was Mr. Congeniality when he convinced me to coach my old high school team. Norman? Asked Mike, placing both hands on the bar. Principal Abbott. That man is the most unfunny, unhappy dude I ever met. Like I said something to upset him. Right. He's always walking around like he's angry at the world. Well, he probably is, said Jones. Take care, Mike. Don't you want your beer? Jones looked across the bar as Stefani now sat next to Aunt May. On second thought, said Jones, sitting on the stool, I will have that beer. Jones responded to the 6 a.m. sharp knock on Aunt May's wooden front door. He bounded down the stairs. Through the window, the buck-toothed Sheriff Boynton paced on the front porch. Jones's stomach wrenched. Even before he opened the door, he was sure something had happened to Dad. Boynton's pale, flat face and his watery eyes unnerved Jones. The sheriff spoke in his official voice, stating succinctly that Dad was found in his pickup at the water's edge near the Wabash Corners Bridge. Bill's dead. He hugged Jones. Heart attack. I don't believe it, Boynton. Jones had inherited more than just Dad's persistence. He was suspicious and questioned possible criminal activity at the river. Jones, sweat beading on his forehead, drove ahead of Aunt May and Boynton. He raced his off-road Honda along the state highway. Ahead, Dad's shiny green pickup dipped downward on the riverbank, just a few hundred yards from the Wabash Corners girdered bridge. Jones skidded to a stop behind 3 cruisers and several unmarked sedans. At least a half a dozen people lingered around the truck. He ran down the embankment. The tire marks were still pressed into the dirt. The tall, raven-haired FBI agent, Mark Donovan, a close friend and associate of his dad, blocked Jones. Let me go through, Mark. That's my dad in that truck. Hold on, Matthias, said Donovan. I'm sorry. Jones grit his teeth. What happened? Heart attack. Heart attack? Mark, you've worked with Dad for years. He's in great shape. Heart attack? That's ridiculous. We need to finish up down here. Finish up what? Can't be a crime scene if you had a heart attack. Jones hung his head and pinched the bridge of his nose. Then he looked up quickly. This is bullshit. There are no signs of foul play, bruises, abrasions, ripped clothes, etc. But the medical examination boys are still doing their job. Jones pushed him aside and marched to Dad's truck. Donovan shouted at him, Matthias, come on, I don't need anybody rocking the boat. Jones leaped past a pudgy cop taking photos of the truck. No one was inside. Where the hell is my father? Let him see his father. Jones circled around the back of the truck. Dad, covered by white sheets, was on a gurney facing the river. Jones lifted the sheet. Dad's eyes were closed, his face serene. He saw no signs of a struggle, no fight, no shootout with the bad guys. For a man who had spent his life fighting and solving crimes, Bill Jones had met a nondescript ending. Monsignor Nowicki, his Caesar-cut white hair bright in the sunshine, stood with Jones and Aunt May away from the graveside. Jones's team and members of the faculty had left, and Stefani had returned to set up the VFW reception the way she wanted it. Jones clutched onto the folded American flag that the Marine Guard had given him. He could still hear the bugler's mournful notes as taps just minutes ago had echoed throughout the cemetery's oaks and evergreens against the blue sky. Mark Donovan's gray sedan started back toward town. The FBI agent had apologized numerous times for being brusque at the river. Jones wanted more information, but Dad's friend in the FBI said there was nothing more. Jones believed he was lying. "It was his time," said Monsignor Nowicki. Jones had known Nowicki most of his 23 years on the planet. He nodded and panned back to the mahogany casket, not yet lowered into the grave below the spreading oak where the hill began to rise. The silver Wabash Corners Bridge in the background connected the rest of the United States to his hometown on the eastern side. Boynton exited his two-tone green cruiser. Jones marched along the loose stone walkway. Boynton removed his hat as he approached Jones. His peppered hair was silver in the sun. "Matthias, I just got off the phone with the medical examiner's office. Ms. Roberts read me the official report. Your dad had a massive clot." Boynton: "Dad never had any heart problems. He worked out. You know that." "I know he did, but sometimes these things are undetectable." Jones shook his head. No. No bruises, no gunshot wounds, no injections." Jones faced the grave as he spoke. "I need to know what case Dad was working on." "I don't know." Jones spun around. "What do you mean you don't know? You're the sheriff." "Bill went undercover on this one. I honestly don't know what he was doing." "Does Mark know?" "You'll have to ask him." "And Dad just drives off the road?" "Yeah, right. Donovan's given me 1,000 apologies and the brush off." "I think you may be trying to justify Bill's death." "Shut up, Boynton." "Then how do you explain the blood clot?" asked Boynton. "You think somebody made it happen." "I don't discount anything." "I'm sorry." "Me too," said Jones as he started back to Aunt May. Then he stopped. Boynton was halfway back to the cruiser. "Hey, Boynton!" Boynton turned and Jones shouted out, "Bill Jones would be all over this." Boynton pursed his lips as he rounded the cruiser. As the engine started, Aunt May reached Jones midway on the grass. Boynton pulled away in the cruiser. "Well, what did you tell him?" Jones grit his teeth. "Aunt May, he just wants everything real tidy, just like Donovan." Aunt May's solemn face and dark eyes looked frozen. "I've been prepared for this for years." "Me too." "What are you going to do, Matthias?" Jones stared at his father's wood-grain casket. "I have a team. I can't just walk away from my team. But I'm going to do what Dad would do. I'm going to find the whole truth and nothing but the truth." Aunt May put her hand on his shoulder. "So help me God." Jones smiled and then hugged her. "So help me God." Rest in peace, Bill Jones. Chapter 2. Club Max, 35 Front Street, Prince William, New Hampshire. The saxophones and bass guitars thumped throughout the blue-lighted, smoke-filled bar. Coco knew they had exceeded the fire marshal's limit of 200 patrons, but he didn't care. He escorted Holly in her leather skirt across the floor. The slick-haired Bruno flagged him down from behind the bar.
"Coco, Lester Larsen is looking for you."
"What are you telling me, Bruno? Larsen's back at the club?"
"He said—"
"I don't give a damn what he said. Look, Bruno, I got 10 grand on Channel Z spreads. I ain't got time for Lester Larsen."
"He hit old man Manzini in the ass with a dart,"
said Cosmo, the other bartender. Coco winced. "Bruno, call a cab for Holly. Is Larsen still over by the dartboards?" Bruno stood on his toes.
"Yeah, he's there."
Coco kissed the curly-haired blonde on the cheek. "I'll talk to you, Holly." Holly smiled and sashayed to the lobby. Coco's lighter flared out and he lit a cigarette as he moved. He exhaled and pivoted through the dance floor crowd. Lester Larsen, just over 5 feet tall, stood on one of Coco's new cherrywood chairs. Lester had a dart in his left hand and a full beer mug in his right hand. His voice sounded like a speaker on overload. Then he sloshed the beer over the edge of the mug and onto Coco's new swirly blue rug.
"Hey!" shouted Lester. "I'm an expert with a football."
"You coach at Hamilton College?" asked a thin brunette with multiple tattoos down her arms.
"Nah, my father coaches. He's a living legend. But I more or less run the team. Now."
"Stupid idiot," mumbled Coco, still moving forward. He caught sight of Manzini from Mayor Picata's office, standing against the railing and rubbing his buttocks. Hey, Mr. Mancini, are you all right? Mancini's mushy mustache rose upward as his dark eyes opened wide. That damn fool let the dart fly and got me in the rear end. Coco's face tightened and his body tensed as he grimaced at Lester, still mouthing off from atop the chair. Look, honey, said Lester. Lester bellowed at the blonde-haired April, holding her waitress's tray. I'll show you a good time. Coco accelerated toward the dartboards like a race car to the finish line at the Prince William Speedway. He stopped behind Lester. Hey, Larsen, put down the dart, moron. I don't take that kind of crap from no one. No how, he said, keeping his back to Coco. He threw the dart and hit a table lamp, popping the bulb. With his cigarette in the corner of his mouth, Coco surged forward. He grabbed Lester under the elbows and spun him around. Lester guzzled the beer and smacked the mug on the table. Coco studied the flesh-toned scar looping completely around Lester's neck. What happened to your neck, Larsen? Dr. Frankenstein screw up the head transplant? I don't know no Frankenstein. Look, Pygmy, you get your dumb-ass motor scooter and get out of town. Coco, come on. Lester's large jaw jutted out and his eyes were gargantuan behind blue-rimmed goggle glasses. Yeah, Coco, you just pegged a dart at old man Mancini. Did I hit him? Asked Lester as Coco kept him up in the air. Yeah, you hit him in the ass. Bullseye. Coco thrust Lester into the air and across the table. Lester, his sneakers sticking out, slid over the far side of the table. Where the hell is Larsen? Protecting my assets, said Lester in a muffled voice from under the table. Coco turned to the waitress. April, get Mr. Mancini a scotch and tell Bruno to get the first aid kit. Bring Mancini to the back room. He'll sue, said Lester from under the table. Coco pressed his lips. He ain't suing nobody, dweeb. April, you help him out with his wounds. He'll sue Club Max, repeated Lester. Coco turned over the table and Lester sat up on the rug. Then he stood, brushing off his arms. Hey, Lester. Jawohl. I have a hot tip for you. Bring it on, said Lester, gesturing with his fingers. The only thing I want from you, Larsen, he said, signaling with his thumb, is for you to get the hell out of here and stay out. I can make you 10 grand. Coco squinted. Every time you gamble, you lose, bozo. Then you don't pay up. Maybe I'll just send you back to South Boston. You can talk to Mr. Fiore. No Fiore. Look, you need to bet on the Prince William Bloomers. What, an all-girl football team? There ain't no money in that. Game's rigged, said Lester, picking up somebody else's mug of beer off the adjacent table. Hey, that's not your beer, yelled Coco. He pushed Lester and then physically plowed him toward the front door. As the man in the corner table opened the door, he kicked Lester into the parking lot. Now go tell your old man he wants you. Huh? Said Lester near his little motor scooter. Why would I tell him that? Ah, snapped Coco, waving his hand through the air. Coco was still shaking his head after he crossed the bar. He pulled back the folding door to the area where he hung out and back. The river lights were still visible through the sliders. He skirted round the tables and then called into the next room. Everything all right in there, Mr. Mancini? Yeah, I'm feeling better. Good. I'm sure you are. Coco poured himself a scotch and then added some water. Then he flipped on the large overhead monitor for Channel Z, the gambling channel. He put out a cigarette and lit another as he swigged the drink. Prince William Bloomers, what a fool. Bruno pulled back the doors and ducked his head inside. Hey, Coco. What is it now, Bruno? We put a call into Picata. He'll get back to you about Mancini. Good. And we fixed the table light and cleaned the rug with mugs of beer all around. If Larsen stayed any longer in the club, I'd go broke. The only person dumber than him is his old man. You mean the Hamilton coach? Yeah, Lark Larsen. Let me quote Father Gallagher. If that man won a football game, the Pope would make him a saint for performing a miracle. What about Mancini? Coco glanced at the rear room. He'll be fine. I gotta get back up front. Make sure Larsen never shows his ugly mug here at the club again. He's a detriment to business. Coach Larsen? No, the doofus. I'm talking about the little troll that was just in here. Coco shook his head as Bruno shut the folding doors. Coco checked the odds on a California horse race. Manzini emerged from the back room, followed by April. "How's your ass, Mr. Manzini?"
April took care of the wound.
"Good," he said as a football game, complete with odds, came on the screen. "You have my apologies for that dumbbell, Larsen."
"I knew I'd be in trouble when he started that fire in the men's room."
Cocoa leaped to his feet. "He what?"
"Challenged Spike Sabo to a fight."
Cocoa turned from the game. "Why didn't Spike kick his ass?"
Spike's manager, Richie McGurk, stepped in. The little twerp knocked the cigar into the trash. When it caught fire, Larsen dumped the wastebasket in the alley.
"Are you kidding me?" He took out his cell and opened the sliders. As he rounded the building, he called Boston. Ahead in the alley, a pile of burnt paper smoldered near the dumpster.
"Glass slipper."
"Yeah, this is Cocoa," he said, stomping on the charred paper. "I need Mr. Fiore to call me at his convenience. I'm having trouble with that little squirt, Lester Larsen."
"We'll get the message to him, Mr. Stefani."
"Okay, I'll talk to you." Cocoa ran back along the grass near the river and entered through the open sliders. The football game continued on Channel Z. He stuck his head back into the club and signaled Bruno. The team from Wabash Corners, Indiana, was leading by 40 points.
"Yeah,
the men's room's wastebasket was on fire in the alley."
I'll have somebody clean it up."
"Yeah, well, you better bring some water. It was on fire, but it's just smoking now."
"Lester?"
"Nice guess, Bruno. I don't want that mongoose within 10 miles of the club." Bruno nodded and shut the folding doors. The Wabash Corners team had just scored another touchdown. The young coach ran along the sidelines, patting his players on the shoulder pads. Cocoa checked the odds. This was the national championship, and the Wabash team was a 6-1 underdog. Bruno leaned inside.
"It's taken care of."
Cocoa nodded. Not only was he upset with Lester Larsen, but his bumbling old man had an aversion to winning. Cocoa had always bet against Hamilton College, even though he had connections with the Fletcher family. The Fletchers ran the college and everything else in the small New Hampshire town. He gripped the phone and debated whether to call the patriarch of the Fletcher family, Hamilton Fletcher. That young coach, whoever he was, might be thinking about coaching a college team. He put his cell back in his pocket just as the Wabash cornerback intercepted a pass down the middle and ran 60 yards for the touchdown. Again, the camera zoomed in on the coach, but this time his name was on the screen. Matthias Jones. He pushed the speed dial for Hamilton Fletcher. This Jones guy had to be 50 years younger than Lark Larsen. He was filled with enthusiasm and clearly enjoyed winning. Hollings, the Fletcher butler, was clear on the voicemail greeting.
"Mr. Fletcher is preoccupied and will return your call momentarily."
"Yeah, Mr. Fletcher, it's Cocoa. I may have found a coach to take down the Larsen dynasty. I'll talk to you." When the game ended, Cocoa had been standing for 15 minutes. Wabash Corners had won the national championship 56-0. Cocoa walked up to the monitor as a short woman reporter interviewed the coach on the field.
"Coach Matthias Jones, quite an impressive win for you." "Well, not for me, Sheila, my boys. The whole team won this game. They showed up for every game. What's next for you, Coach?"
"I'll tell you what's next for you, Coach," said Cocoa. "You're coming back east is what you're going to do."
"Well, I'm just going to celebrate with the team back in Indiana and have a piece of my Aunt May's apple pie."
Apple pie? Cocoa checked his phone and then looked back at the TV. This guy's too good to be true.
"How do you attribute the team's phenomenal record?"
Jones's eyes filled and his voice cracked as he spoke.
"Hit him, and hit him hard."
Rest in peace, Bill Jones. Chapter 3. Aunt May's farmhouse, 322 Old Wabash Road, Wabash Corners, Indiana. Jones's notes, folders, and newspaper articles concerning his father's death were spread over the farmhouse's kitchen table. Aunt May finished the phone call to her friend Myra on the hall phone. In her white button sweater and house dress, she hobbled into the voluminous kitchen. "Didn't you want any cookies, Matthias?" "No," said Jones, and he looked up. "What was that, Aunt May?" "The question was, do you want any cookies?"
Yeah, sure. I haven't asked about what you're doing. Bill always said never to interrupt a man while he's working. But what have you got? Well, I've finally had time to look into this. Mark Donovan is a nice guy, but he's clearly holding back on what Dad was doing, and so is Boynton. So what's the big deal? Why was he headed up north? Where was he headed up north? Aunt May sat across the table. When he was done, when he could, Bill always talked about investigations, sometimes not. Donovan knows. I don't think Boynton knows. I went over Dad's whole cell phone bills, calls to Iggy, that's it. Iggy was Bill's best friend. Calls to you and me up to a month and a half ago. And then all the work he did on the Bevins case in Illinois. But whatever he was working on since September isn't on his phone. Don't you find that strange, Aunt May? I do. I checked with all the cell companies, nothing in his name for another phone. He looked into the front room toward the TV and the computer. Let me check something. What? She asked, following him into the front room. Jones sat down at the computer. He opened the browser and went into the map finder, but the search boxes were blank. Jones turned to his aunt. Where is Dad's phone? In his bedroom with his effects. I'll get it. Jones's own phone rang. An unknown area code flashed on the screen. He looked down the hall for Aunt May and then answered the phone. A funky beat from a bar or a restaurant filled the earpiece.
Hey, you Jones?
What? Asked Jones as the music continued.
I said, are you Jones?
He shouted. Who wants to know? After a short silence, the man laughed as the music continued.
Hey, I like that. Name's Cocoa Stefani.
Jones peered down the hall again. What do you want?
Listen, I got a hot tip for you.
My life is filled with hot tips, pal. Jones hung up the phone as Aunt May, her face contorted, walked into the room with Dad's black frame phone. I don't understand. What's the matter, Aunt May? Well, this is Bill's phone, but the case isn't his. His was worn, this is new. So he got a new case. Or another phone. Aunt May handed the phone to him. How are you going to get his password? I was there when he got the phone. I programmed it in. He put in my mother's name, Marjorie. Jones imported his mother's name in and the phone opened up. It's his. Boynton already checked all the phone records. I know, and all the calls to you and me and to Iggy. Well, he's known Iggy since he was 3 years old. Jones nodded and checked the browser. Nothing. His phone rang again. The same number appeared on the screen. He pressed the phone to his ear. Hey, look, Stepapini. He heard a chuckle.
Stefani, Cocoa Stefani. I'm serious, Jones. You want to coach college ball in New Hampshire?
College ball? Who the hell are you?
Never mind who I am. You ever hear of Hamilton College?
Hamilton? I can't say that I have.
On the coast of New Hampshire, between Maine and Massachusetts. See, they have this dimwit coach named Larsen. He's been there for 40 years. He's finally retiring.
Well, what's his record? Coco laughed.
Record? Larsen never hit double digits. The man is an idiot. But that's irrelevant. The job's opening up.
Aunt May mouthed the words. College? Jones raised his index finger. Well, why do you care? You work for the college?
Let's just say I have a financial interest in the college, and I have connections.
How did you track me down?
Hey, you ask a lot of questions, Jones. A report about you was on Channel Z.
Channel Z? Isn't that the gambling channel out of Atlantic City?
What do you care what it is? Hold on.
He spoke with somebody in the background.
No, you tell him to bring the cash to the club, Bruno, tonight. You still there, Jonesy?
Yeah, I'm here, he said, grinning at being called Jonesy.
What I'm telling you is I can get you the job. One call to the Fletchers and you're in.
Send me some information about the college and the athletic program.
I'll have the old man call you.
Old man?
Hamilton Fletcher. Hey, you'll like it here.
Well, thanks for calling.
My pleasure.
Jones stared at the phone. If that's for real, I was just offered a college coaching job. Aunt May pointed at him. Well, you did just win the national championship. You need to at least check it out, Matthias. Jones nodded as he scrolled down the numbers on his father's phone into last month. All the local numbers I recognized. Wabash Corner's numbers. I need to talk with Iggy. If Dad was going up north, either Iggy knew where he was going or Dad had some kind of map. Well, how many miles did he intend to go? Asked Aunt May. He was about to tell her that Dad's mileage was irrelevant. Wait. Jones hurried back to the kitchen table. He shuffled through his folders and then pulled out the police report with the exact truck mileage. 67,952. When's the last time he had the truck service? Well, you'll have to speak with Jerry down at the garage. I want to say a couple weeks back, not too long ago. She pointed at the handwritten numbers next to the landline phone in the kitchen. I'll check it out. We'll get the mileage, said Aunt May. But Aunt May, it all goes back to mimicking a heart attack. I just keep wondering if I'm grasping at straws. When you have exhausted all the possibilities, remember this, you haven't. Did Dad say that? He did, but Edison said it first. The lug nut wrench's looping crescendo caused Jones to step back to Jerry's office. He quickly closed the door as the large-nosed Jerry thumbed through a dozen folders balanced on his knees. Jerry, don't you have it on computer? Yeah, well, you got to put it in to get it out. So, I take it you didn't put in Dad's mileage on the truck. Jerry picked up a cigar. Well, maybe I did, but then again, maybe I didn't. Wait, his bill slip 3 weeks ago, 67,952. Are you sure, Jerry? Oh, Fergie knows numbers. Fergie plays the numbers. That too. Fergie got an A in math. Just double check it, please. We call Fergie the human calculator, said Jerry as he set the folders on the floor. I'll ask him, said Jones as he went back into the garage. The tall and husky Fergie's crew-cut and pinpoint head was inconsistent with his wide shoulders. He started the lug nut wrench just as Jones began to speak. He cupped his hands. Fergie! Fergie had an odd fascination with the spinning the lug nut off the tire rim. Fergie! Huh? He asked in his raspy voice, but the lug nut wrench spun toward Jones. Jones leaped back. You calling me, Coach? Yeah, shut off the wrench. Sorry, I can't hear you because of the wrench. What's up? My dad's truck. I'm checking the mileage when it was in here. 67,952. How do you know that? Oh, I know numbers. 330% higher than usual. Jones was shocked at his mathematical ability. You are the human calculator. E equals MC squared. It's all relative. Yeah, right. Look, Fergie. Jones's cell phone rang again. As he pulled it from his coat, Fergie started removing the lug nuts again. Hello, this is Matthias Jones.
Jones, this is Hamilton Fletcher.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Listen, Jones, I'm offering you the chance of a lifetime.
Jones opened the door to Jerry's office. Jerry's side toilet kept repeatedly flushing. Look, pal, I don't do timeshare, said Jones, blocking his ear as the toilet flushed again. Then he stepped outside. Who is this?
This is Hamilton Fletcher.
I apologize, Mr. Fletcher. I couldn't hear you.
Jones, my family has been in this town for 250 years. My line goes back to the great shipping families in Great Britain.
Jones rolled his eyes. Mr. Fletcher, I appreciate your interest in what my team was able to accomplish this year.
Good. Then you'll be glad to know that I'm interested in you taking the reins of the college athletic programs.
Sir, I've lived here all my life.
Then it's time for a change, son.
I'm very happy here.
And you couldn't be happier here. I've got a first-class ticket to Boston waiting for you.
Sir, I appreciate it, but I'll pass on this one.
You've got nothing to lose, son. A nice trip to New England, and you're under no obligation.
Sorry. Fletcher mumbled something before he hung up.
Oh, you'll come around.
Jones stared at his phone, pushy.
Prince William Slasher, Chapter 4, St. Bart's Rectory, Prince William, New Hampshire. The front room was lit by both floor lamps and a widescreen TV. Jones's stomach remained queasy. He probably would not have signaled for the rectory parking lot had Gallagher been asleep. The night air had cooled and the wind had swung in from the north, pushing back his hair as he moved with his hands in his coat pockets up the front walk. He glanced at the parking lot at the van and shook his head. Jones pushed the tiny doorbell button. The bell was loud enough to be heard through both doors. The porch light brightened the gray clapboards. The orange-haired Gallagher, in a gray bathrobe, dipped his head outward. His blue eyes focused on Jones. Come to take back the basketball passes, Matthias? Jim, I was over at Club Max. Please, come in. I'm just watching the Celtics wrap-up. They're playing the Warriors out on the coast. I still can't believe it. Jones moved in the hallway's warmer air. Can I get you a drink? Jones noticed the empty glass on the side table. No, I just need to talk, Father. Sit down, Matthias, said Gallagher, motioning him toward the dark leather sofa. He turned down the TV volume. After an awkward silence, Jones cleared his throat. The slasher hit Club Max, Jim. Oh, dear God, said Gallagher, scooping up the glass. In the club itself? Father, that girl Holly was a waitress. Cocoa introduced me earlier. Almost instantly, Gallagher returned with 2 glasses. Have the brandy. Thanks. When Cocoa ran outside, I followed him into the parking lot. She was murdered near the second row of cars. How do you know it was the slasher? Jones sipped the brandy and rolled his tongue over his lips as he nodded. Razor cut to the neck, duct tape on the mouth, blood pool on the pavement, and gin. Gallagher leaned forward. That's awful. Poor girl. My dad used to tell me that even though he had seen a lot in his career, outright murder had a cold stillness. Now I know what he meant. What did the police say? I talked with Kevin Phillips. He has a lot more on the ball than that big-mouth Bosco. Bosco is on the take. How do you know that, Father? What'd they do, supply him with truckloads of Big Mama's donuts? Gallagher half smiled. I'm still stunned. When you actually see someone murdered, it's different. She was such a nice girl. Well, you're welcome to stay in one of my spare rooms. I know you're still at the Marlborough in Hamilton. Not a bad idea, Father. Well, that will accomplish 2 things. You'll get a better night's sleep. What's the other? You'll be at Mass in the morning. Jones sat in a worn oak pew as Gallagher's voice boomed from the pulpit about examining one's conscience. He did not think the homily was directed at him and Club Max, but he wasn't sure. The priest attracted a huge following. In this secular age, the stone-block church was full of parishioners. Jones's eyes, even though he had slept 7 hours, ached as the sunlight produced a spread of colors through the stained glass on the gray stone walls. In summation, said Gallagher, his words echoing between the stone walls, when you think what you're doing is wrong, it probably is. Jones's head filled with multiple images of Holly, throat split and tape over her mouth, sprawled dead in the Club Max parking lot. Beautiful harmonic music, Gloria in Excelsis from the choir loft, seemed at odds with thoughts of the gruesome discovery. He wanted to know why there was additional blood on Holly's arm and the other side of the dress. His throat tightened every time he thought of speaking with her at the table. The motorcycle's driver, fading into the Prince William night, bothered him. In some strange cross-tie scenario, he questioned whether Coco's information about Lester Larsen being back in New Hampshire was just a rumor. Maybe speaking with the Enterprise owner, Tom McGill, might clarify the enigma called Lester Larsen. After church, the St. Bart's Women's Club pancake breakfast was held in the parish hall, where Jones had first met Gallagher playing basketball. Besides being stuffed with a variety of pancakes, Jones met and conversed with a dozen or more women from the women's club, but he was anxious to get back to Hamilton. Then Aunt May called from Indiana.
Don't let a murder shut down your life, is what Bill used to say,
said Aunt May. I remember.
What does your friend Phillips say?
She asked. Forensically, there's a problem for the killer. The razor cut to the neck was evident, but there was blood on the arm and the side of her dress. Phillips has the medical examiner looking at it.
You mean the killer might have cut himself on the razor?
We'll see. The other thing was the motorcycle.
The killer?
Asked Aunt May. I don't know. Junior saw a gray hooded driver in a trench coat on what he called a motor scooter. Other people just heard the engine. And here's the thing, Aunt May. The other murdered women had no witnesses, but they were all killed on Saturday nights.
You need a physical suspect.
There was another murder 2 years ago in Hamilton. Lady's throat slashed. No duct tape, no gin. Anyway, Father Gallagher was nice enough to let me stay in the rectory. Father's a sports nut and has a parish sports program.
Excuse me, Matthias, but was the Hamilton murder on a Saturday night?
I don't know.
Well, find out.
I'll let you know, Aunt May.
You won't tell me anything unless I call.
Jones laughed. Well, I guess that's true. Goodbye, Aunt May. Jones veered toward the coffee urn and was ready to travel back to the Marlborough. He was due later today to meet with Hamilton Fletcher and the college trustees. My son plays all sports, said a thin woman at the coffee urn. That's great. It's always good for youngsters to play sports. Oh, yes, he can throw a football 60 yards, she said, her eyes sparkling. 60 feet is pretty good. No, 60 yards. Jones's head snapped to the right. Well, how old is this wonder boy? 17. He played for St. Barnabas High School. St. Barnabas in the city? Asked Jones. Yes. Our high school has been in existence for 52 years. Well, that's great, said Jones, smiling. I'd like to see him throw sometime. Oh, Jimmy's here. We can have him come over to the college, said Jones. I'll find Father Jim and we'll get a football. She started toward Gallagher down the other end as Jones called out. What's your name, ma'am? Mary Butterfino, she called back. Butterfino. Gallagher was heavily engaged with 3 men in suits. When Mrs. Butterfino spoke up, Gallagher opened his eyes wide and excused himself from the men. Then he opened a side door. Half a minute later, Gallagher spun the football to Jones. Jones gave him the thumbs up. Mrs. Butterfino had entered the parish hall with a dark-haired, lanky 6-footer. He had sharp, black eyes. Jimmy, I'm Coach Jones, he said, placing the ball in Jimmy's hands. You can call me Buddha. I like real names, said Jones, thinking of Lark's lexicon of player nicknames. Come outside. Your mother says you can throw 60 yards. I can do that. They retreated into the rectory parking lot. Jones pointed to the far corner near the dumpster. I'm going to go across the lot. You stretch your arm first, and when I give you the signal, throw it to me. Okay, Coach. He looked at his nimble mother with a half grin. Jimmy trotted down the sidewalk to the corner of the parish hall. Jones stood near the sidewalk shrubbery on Belfast Street. As Jimmy stretched his arm, Holly's body at Club Max again materialized in Jones's thoughts. For 10 minutes he had forgotten about the slasher. He shook his head as if he could get rid of that ghastly image. Ready, Jimmy? Ready! Jimmy held the ball forward as if he were getting the snap from center. Jones was sure he was at least 70 yards away, but Jimmy even reached the edge of the parking lot. He scrambled back and hurled the ball high into the blue sky. A stunned Jones watched the ball sail over his head and bounce onto Belfast Street. Jones turned as Jimmy jogged back toward him. I told you, Coach, said Mrs. Butterfino. Where'd you learn to throw like that? Asked Jones. Always had a good arm, I guess. You want me to get the ball? Yeah, just don't get hit by a car. Jones slowly smiled as Jimmy hurdled the shrubs. He had the ball in seconds and again scaled the bushes, but this time with the ball under his arms. Then he and Jones started toward the parish hall door. What are your grades like? Asked Jones. Okay, said Jimmy. Just okay. Grades need to be there, Jimmy. I want you to come over at the end of the week. I'll show you the campus. Jones put his hand on Jimmy's shoulder. You bet. Well, asked Gallagher. Very impressive. I'll have him over the college, Mrs. Butterfino. Get some times and accurate measurements. I think he has a great future. Thanks, Coach. You have an assistant coach yet? Asked Gallagher. I want Woozy Williams from Indiana, but I'm afraid Hamilton Fletcher is impatient. You know Hamilton. I do. Jones left St. Bart's around noon. He smiled at Gallagher's handwritten map, directing him by shortcuts to the road connecting to Hamilton. A smile came to his face as he thought about the dynamic Gallagher at the pancake breakfast. Gallagher's quick wit and directness impressed Jones. He was more genuine than the stuffy Monsignor Nowicki, but he knew that in Jimmy Butterfino he had just found his first recruit. Before he left the city, Jones called Kevin Phillips. Phillips told Jones he had new information and put him on hold as he retrieved his report.
I'd like to run this by you, Matthias. Here's what
said Phillips as Jones started the van up the highway over the Devonshire hills.
You caught something significant with the arm blood and more on the back. Holly's blood was A, the other blood was O. The killer messed up. We also have prints for the first time on the duct tape. And the tape is not the same tape. It's a little thinner, not as wide.
Don't you find that odd, Kevin?
More stupid than odd. Guy always wore gloves and he pulled the tape off the roll. But on one side of this tape is a pristine set of left-handed fingerprints.
Why on one side of the tape?
Well, maybe he had the glove off on one hand. I don't know. We'll have more witness statements later today also.
Jones shifted as the road angled upward along the rocks. Right, you'd still have to grab the other side of the tape with your other hand, or cut it.
But there's one additional fact you're not going to like.
What's that?
Herbert Lane does not like you.
My heart is broken.
We all got chewed out from Bermuda because he said Kip Bosco told him you were snooping around the murder scene.
I was at Club Max with Holly earlier.
I told that to Herbert. Herbert questioned Coco this morning from Bermuda. Kip said that Coco was a suspicious character.
Coco was inside Club Max when Holly was murdered.
I have statements from 11 people and counting that will verify his presence inside Club Max. We have more outside statements later today, and we'll compare those to what you saw.
That's a good idea. Jones reached the Devonshire crest, and the blue sky widened over the distant hills. The town and college were highlighted in the bright sunshine. To his left in the distance was the Fletcher estate, the green lawn bordering the house and the woods beyond. One other thing, Kevin.
Sure.
Do I have permission to talk to McGill at the Enterprise?
Yeah, that's okay, but leave the Prince and Clayton Morris's blood work out of this.
Okay.
Just account what you saw and leave me out of it. I don't need Lane busting my chops on this.
We don't want Herbert to blow off his toupee in a fit of rage,
I'd like to see that.
said Phillips, laughing. I won't mention our conversation.
Okay, look, I know the work you did in Cleveland, Matthias, and I know of your father's reputation. I talked with Mark Donovan of the FBI directly. If you come up with something, let me know.
Will do. Jones caught sight of the stadium and surrounding buildings outside of town. Although First Parish's white steeple was visible, the town common itself was out of sight. Railroad tracks passed the lumber yard that he assumed belonged to Arnie Dewars and continued under the bridge near the Colonial House. His phone shook. At first he just stared, wondering who had his phone number. Then he picked up. Jones heard a blast of wind and car horns. Who is this? A low, slurred voice rattled the speaker.
This is Uncle Sam. You like football? Remember the play?
I heard of it. You mean Stanford versus USC, 1982, before my time, pal.
How many laterals do we have?
Are you the slasher?
I saw you, Jones, with her at Club Max. I'm tricky. I had to move upfield.
The call ended. Uncle Sam. 4 or 5 lateral passes. Hello! Hello! Jones pulled over to the shoulder near the entrance to some rock quarries. He quickly checked the number, 603-555-0121. The phone line rang again. Jones opened the line. Listen, you murdering son of a bitch,
What the hell are you talking about, Jones?
asked Herbert Lane on a scratchy line.
I heard you were touchy.
The killer. He just called me on the phone.
Sure he did. Exactly why I'm calling you. I know you talked to Phillips.
I had a few questions, Herbert.
No more questions. Stay out of this, Jones. Leave it to the professionals.
I'm only trying to help you, Herbert, as you take in the sun.
You can call me Mr. District Attorney.
Jones's incredulous expression was evident in the mirror. He pushed the thumb on the end button. Mr. District Dum-Dum. As the land leveled out a few minutes later, near apartments outside of town, Jones called Phillips. The line rang and he was about to hang up when the lieutenant answered.
Matthias, Herbert just contacted my office, and he was going to call you.
He did. I tried to tell him the killer just called me.
He never mentioned that.
Phillips's voice sounded tense.
How do you know it was the killer?
603-555-0121.
We'll check that out right now. Thanks.
The caller referred to the play.
What play?
1982 football championship between USC and Stanford. One of the weirdest kickoff returns of all time. 5 pass laterals, and they ran it into the end zone to win the game.
Why would the slasher bring this up?
Asked Phillips. I don't know. Obviously, he saw me inside Club Max with Holly last night. Somehow he's linked me with murdering Holly. That makes no sense. He called himself Uncle Sam.
Weird. And did you tell Lane this?
He refused to talk about it.
Wow. John Tully is checking that number.
Fine with me.
What does the play mean?
Asked Phillips. It's one of those miracle plays that looks as though they've practiced it for years, no rhyme or reason.
Okay, we'll check this out, Matthias.
Thanks, Kevin, and say hello to Mr. District Dum Dum. Phillips broke into a laugh.